All right, let's do some examples from 4-4. Okay, so the first section we're going to do is the greatest common factor. So the greatest common factor means that you guys are going to find the largest thing in common. So what does a GCF stand for? It stands for the greatest common factor. Okay, now when you do this, I always want you to do this step first. So always do this step first. So do this first, do this first, do this first. Always do this first. So when I look at number 1, and on number 1 I see 2 pockets of stuff. I see 12a to the third plus 10a squared. Okay. So before I even worry about if it's perfect or not or anything, what you want to do is you want to take the stuff that's in common, and in a bigger set of parentheses, you want to write down what you have left over. Now, I highlighted the 2 terms, or the 2 pockets of stuff. I highlighted the first pocket in pink, and I highlighted the second pocket in yellow. All right. So, what do they have in common? So look at the numbers first. 12 and 10, what can you divide out of both of those? Well, I can divide out a 5 out of a 10, but not out of 12. I can divide a 4 and a 6 out of 12, but not out of 10. But I can divide out of both of them a 2. So they both have a 2 in common. So in the pink and in the yellow, we're going to write down what we have left over after we divide out this 2. So 12 divided by 2 is 6. 10 divided by 2 is 5. What did the pink and the yellow have between them? They had a plus sign. So you've dealt with the numbers. We're so close to being done. Now we're going to look at the letters, which is the variables. So in the pink jar, we had 3 A's because it said a to the third. So you had 1, 2, 3 A's. In the yellow jar, you had 2 A's. I'll write them out like this. And what we're going to do is we're going to match up the amount that we have in common, and we're going to put it out front. So the pink has 1 here. So does the yellow. So we got to match. So far, they have 1 and 1 in common. The pink also has a second A, so does the yellow. So they have 2 in common. The pink has a third, but the yellow does not. So how many did I circle that they have in common? They have 2 A's in common. So we can write it as 2 A's right there behind the coefficient of 2. And here you're going to write what each pocket have left over. So we wrote 2 A's out front. We wrote 2 A's out front. The pink pocket would have 1 left. The yellow pocket would have none. So this has now been factored. Okay, why do we factor? We factor to find zeros. What are zeros? Zeros are called solutions. What are solutions? They're where they cross the x-axis. Now, if some of you wrote this, 2a squared, because you have 2 A's, times the quantity of 6a plus 5, that's okay too. That's perfect. Both of those are right. Okay, so there's your greatest common factors. Sweet, delightful. Don't make it harder than what it is. Just look for what they have in common. Okay, no formulas on this one, you're just seeing what they have in common. So if I look at number 2 and we factor out what they have in common and we leave a big set of parentheses for what you guys got left over, well, let's highlight the 2 pockets of stuff. The 2 pockets are here and they are here. So what can you divide out of both the pink and the yellow? 14 and 7. I think you can divide out of 14 out of each. Now, the leftovers are going to have, you have a pink pocket or a pink jar that I highlighted first. And you also have a yellow jar that I highlighted. Now, do you have to highlight them? No, but I think colors are much easier to see. There was a minus between the pink and the yellow. Okay, so let's go ahead and focus on that. So divide this out. So 14 divided by 7 is 2. 7 divided by 7 is 1. Great, the numbers are done. Now, I don't want to write out the A's like I did over here. I don't want to do this because when they get to be bigger, like you see 8 M's, I don't want to do that. So what's the easiest way to do that? Well, you want to find what they both have in common. So this guy has 8 M's and this guy has 2 M's. So would you agree they have M's in common? Hopefully, because it looks like both pockets have M's. Now, how much do they have in common? Remember, it's called the greatest common factor, but the amount that they have in common isn't the biggest number, because even though this guy has 8, does he have 8 M's? He does not. He only has 2. So they only have 2 m's in common. That's the largest amount they have in common. They don't have 8 m's in common. Me and Bill Gates don't have billions of dollars in common. Okay, we have about $8 in common because that's how much I have. Just because he has more doesn't mean that we have that same amount. It's this number. So since he has 2 and he has 8, the largest amount they have in common is 2. So out of the pink, we're going to take out 2. Out of the yellow, we're going to take out 2. So M has 8 of them. If I take 2 out, the pink jar would have 6 left. He has 2 M's. If I take 2 out, he'd have no M's left. So the M's are now taken care of. So we've taken care of the numbers. We've taken care of the M's. Let's look at the N's. He has 5 N's. This guy has 2 N's. How many would they have in common? Well, the largest amount they have in common, once again, is 2. Even though he has 5, this guy does not have 5. So out of this 5, take 2 out, for that's what they have in common. In the pink, leave what they have left over. Well, if I take 2 out of 5, he's only got 3 left. If I take 2 out and put it out front of the yellow, he doesn't have any left. There's your greatest common factors. Okay, so there's your first section for factoring using a greatest common factor.